Hello, dear viewers. I'm Dr. Olivia Thompson, and today I'm going to share information that could completely change your brain health. Have you ever considered that the white bread in your breakfast might be silently damaging your brain? Sounds like an exaggeration, doesn't it? But science has been revealing alarming connections between refined carbohydrates and cognitive decline, especially after age 60. And no, I'm not just talking about sugar. I'm talking about foods you might not even imagine could be harmful. Think of your brain as a high-performance machine that needs the right fuel to function properly. What happens when you fuel this machine with low-quality fuel? That's exactly what we do when we consume excess refined carbohydrate. As a neurologist and preventive medicine specialist, I've increasingly seen patients in my practice concerned about memory lapses, difficulty concentrating, and even early dementia diagnoses. And often, the common denominator is a diet rich in refined carbohydrates. But before we get into the details of how this happens, I want you to understand the real impact of this seemingly harmless eating habit. Recent research reveals that foods with a high glycemic index like white bread, white rice, and refined pasta can increase the risk of developing vascular dementia by up to 42%. Can you imagine that? Almost half the increased chance of facing serious cognitive problems just because of food choices. The good news is that we can reverse this path with simple and effective dietary changes. Let's understand what happens inside your body when you consume refined carbohydrates. When we eat foods like white bread, cookies, or processed breakfast cereals, our digestive system processes them very quickly, converting them to glucose in a matter of minutes. This accelerated processing causes an abrupt spike in blood sugar, something our body isn't prepared to handle consistently. Your body, in an attempt to control this sudden increase, releases large amounts of insulin. This glycemic roller coaster, when repeated daily for years, triggers a silent inflammatory process in the small blood vessels of the brain. Neurologists call these injuries vascular microlesions, small damages that, alone, may seem insignificant, but when accumulated over decades, seriously compromise brain health. A fascinating study published in the Journal of Alzheimer's Disease followed about 2,800 people for 6 years and found that those with diets rich in refined carbohydrates had a 42% higher risk of developing vascular dementia. This condition compromises blood flow to the brain, depriving brain cells of oxygen and essential nutrients. Have you noticed how you feel after consuming a meal rich in refined carbohydrate? That feeling of lethargy, the difficulty concentrating. That's just the immediate effect. Imagine the cumulative impact over years. Let me share a real story I experienced in my office. Maria, a 68-year-old woman, arrived extremely concerned about her memory. "Doctor, I started forgetting appointments and names of close people. This never happened before," she reported, visibly distressed. When analyzing her diet, we identified that Maria consumed refined carbohydrates in practically every meal: white bread for breakfast, sandwich for lunch, and cookies during the afternoon. We worked together to gradually modify her eating habits, replacing refined carbohydrates with whole grain, low glycemic index options. The results were surprising. After just 3 months, Maria reported a significant improvement in mental clarity. "It's as if the fog had dissipated," she described during our follow-up visit. Her cognitive tests also showed objective improvement, confirming what science had already indicated. But what exactly are these villains we should avoid, especially after 60? First, the aforementioned white bread and refined bakery products. That soft, fluffy bread may be a momentary pleasure, but a long-term problem. Equally harmful are polished white rice, pasta made with refined flour, processed breakfast cereals, and, of course, cookies, crackers, and industrialized snacks. All these foods have something in common. They've gone through industrial processes that removed their natural fibers, vitamins, minerals, and protective bioactive compounds. It's as if everything good had been removed, leaving only the carbohydrate skeleton. Without these protective components, starch is rapidly converted to glucose, causing those blood sugar spikes I mentioned earlier. You might be wondering, so should I completely stop consuming carbohydrate? Absolutely not. Carbohydrates are essential for the proper functioning of our body, especially the brain, which uses glucose as its main energy source. The issue isn't elimination, but choosing the right carbohydrates, those our body was designed to process. In contrast to refined ones, there are foods that can actively protect your brain. Start by replacing white bread with 100% whole grain versions, not those labeled whole grain, but which actually contain refined flour with some added grains. Look for products that list whole grain flour as the first ingredient. The same principle applies to pasta. Opt for whole grain versions that preserve the natural fiber of the grain. White rice can be easily replaced with brown rice, quinoa, oats, or other unprocessed grains. Legumes like beans, lentils, and chickpeas are excellent sources of complex carbohydrates and plant protein. And let's not forget tubers like sweet potatoes and yams, which provide slower digesting complex carbohydrates. The fundamental difference is in the processing. While refined foods have their natural structure altered, losing essential components, whole foods maintain their original composition. This means they're digested more slowly, gradually releasing glucose into the bloodstream, avoiding sugar spikes and consequent inflammation. It's like comparing a controlled energy release versus a sudden explosion. The results of this simple substitution can be extraordinary. A clinical trial conducted by Harvard University demonstrated that people who replaced refined carbohydrates with whole versions showed a 28% improvement in cognitive tests in just 12 weeks. Think about it. In just 3 months, there was a measurable transformation in these people's brain capacity. It was surprising to see how a relatively simple dietary intervention produced such significant results, stated Dr. Liang, the study's principal author. But the benefit goes beyond cognition. This dietary change also significantly reduces the risk of stroke, another devastating condition that affects millions of people annually. The vascular microdamages caused by chronic inflammation from refined foods are important risk factors for cerebrovascular events. By choosing whole carbohydrates, you not only preserve your memory and cognitive capacity, but also protect the integrity of your cerebral blood vessels. You've probably heard about antioxidants and their importance in combating aging. Whole foods are naturally rich in these protective compounds that fight oxidative stress, a process that damages brain cells over time. Additionally, they contain essential nutrients like vitamin E, selenium, and omega-3, all with proven neuroprotective properties. For those concerned about taste or practicality, I have good news. Your palate adapts quickly to new flavors, and many people report that after a few weeks of consuming whole foods, they find refined ones excessively sweet or artificial. As for practicality, there are countless accessible options in the market today, and small weekly preparations can greatly facilitate the transition. Imagine that you decided to make this change today. What would your food day look like? Your breakfast could include oatmeal with fresh fruits and nuts, or a delicious homemade whole grain bread with avocado. For lunch, brown rice or quinoa accompanying your favorite proteins and vegetables. In the afternoon snack, fresh fruits with a handful of nuts or natural yogurt. And for dinner, A comforting soup of vegetables and legumes or a wrap of green leaves with nutritious ingredients seems simple, doesn't it? And it really is. The beauty of this approach lies precisely in its simplicity. We're not talking about complicated, restrictive diets or expensive supplements. We're talking about returning to a diet closer to nature, as our ancestors consumed before the mass industrialization of food. Obviously, the transition doesn't need to be abrupt. If you currently consume a lot of refined carbohydrates, start by replacing one item at a time. Perhaps the breakfast bread is the first step, followed by lunch rice the following week. Gradual changes are more sustainable and more likely to become permanent habits. A strategy I recommend to my patients is the 80-20 rule. Try to make healthy choices 80% of the time, allowing yourself some flexibility in the remaining 20%. This realistic approach recognizes that we live in a real world with social events, celebrations, and special occasions. The goal isn't perfection, but consistency over time. For those who are already over 60 and worried if it's already too late, I have a clear message. It's never too late to make positive changes in your diet. The brain has a remarkable capacity called neuroplasticity, the ability to form new connections and even regenerate cells under certain conditions. Studies show that even people of advanced age can experience significant improvements in cognitive function by adopting healthier eating habits. Based on the most recent scientific evidence, I can confidently state that choosing the right carbohydrates isn't just a matter of weight control, although that's a welcome additional benefit. It's a crucial strategy to preserve your brain function and significantly reduce the risk of stroke and dementia. The difference between white bread and whole grain bread can literally determine the health of your brain in the coming decades. Have you ever stopped to think about the inestimable value of your cognitive health? The ability to remember precious moments with loved ones, to maintain your independence, to continue learning and growing in all phases of life. These are treasures that no material wealth can buy and that deserve our utmost attention and care. I've seen truly inspiring transformations in my clinical practice in patients who made these seemingly simple changes. People who arrived discouraged, worried about cognitive decline, and who, after a few months following these recommendations, report greater mental clarity, better mood, more energy, and renewed confidence in their future. I recently saw Carlos, a 72-year-old university professor who was considering retirement due to growing difficulties in concentration during his classes. After implementing the dietary changes we discussed today, along with other lifestyle interventions, he recovered his mental sharpness and decided to continue teaching for at least 5 more years. I feel like I've gained years of productive life, he commented emotionally during our last consultation. To conclude our conversation today, I want to leave a message of hope and empowerment. Contrary to what many think, we are not destined for inevitable cognitive decline with advancing age. Our daily choices, especially dietary ones, have a profound impact on how our brain ages. Modern science is increasingly revealing how we can actively influence this process, and the replacement of refined carbohydrates with whole ones is one of the most powerful and accessible strategies at our disposal. Start this change today. Your brain will thank you for every meal you wisely choose. And remember, small changes implemented consistently over time produce transformative results. You deserve to age with health, vitality, and mental clarity to fully enjoy all the precious moments that life has to offer. Did you like this information? Then, don't forget to leave your like, share this video with those you love, and subscribe to the channel for more evidence-based health content. In the comments, tell me, do you already make these substitutions in your diet? Have you noticed any difference? I'm eager to read your reports and answer your questions. Until the next video, take care of yourself with kindness and wisdom.